one claim about dyslexia, an interesting one, is that it's related to unusual asymmetries of the brain. By asymmetries of the brain, we mean differences between what the left and right hemisphere does. In fact, it's well known that the left side of the brain, for the vast majority of people, is crucial for skills like learning to understand and produce speech sounds. But of course, as a little girl or a little boy and you learn to read, that hemisphere also becomes the important one for reading. One offshoot of this kind of claim has been around for about 150 years, and that's related to handedness and dyslexia. So, in a random sample of 100 people on the street, about 90 of them will prefer their right hand for skilled activities such as handwriting, but about 10%, the remaining 10%, will prefer their left. What should happen in a random sample of 100 people who have dyslexia is that 90 of them should be right-handed and 10 should be left. But in fact, a scientific literature that's been around for a while now has claimed that it's more like 70% of them are right-handed and 30% are left-handed. So in other words, a left-hander in some sense is 3 times more likely to suffer from a reading difficulty than a right-hander. Now this is an interesting story, but it's probably not true. And one of the main reasons why we think it's not true is referral bias. So, historically, especially in the 20th century, there's still a bit of a stigma around about left-handedness. And so if your child was having trouble with reading, she might be more likely to get a referral to see an educational psychologist for a reading ability assessment if she wrote with her left hand. In fact, her handwriting is likely to be messy, isn't it, if she's left-handed? That has nothing to do with left-handed. That has something to do with writing left-handed in a culture like Welsh or English, where you write from left to right. Your handwriting is harder, as any left-hander will tell you. So, part of the problem in assessing those claims about 30% of people with dyslexia being left-handed is that left-handers are much more likely to get referred to see an educational psychologist, especially in the previous period. In my own lab, we've looked at data from unselected samples that are enriched with left-handers and asked how often people have been diagnosed formally as a child or as a young adult with dyslexia. And there's no difference. It's about 10% of the 10% of the people who have had such a diagnosis are left-handed, about 9% right-handed. So I'm skeptical of the original story.